Welcome to Following on India. I'm Neil Manthorp along with Chetan Narula to look back at the second day of the second test match from the Basapala Stadium in Guwahati. South Africa making 489. India replying in fading light with 9 without loss, still trailing by 480. Chets, I'm going to start at the end. We normally come up with a conclusion about what might happen in the rest of the test match. But a younger colleague of mine, I'm going to start with this because a younger colleague of mine messaged me to say, India can't win from here, surely. And I said, you haven't seen very much cricket in India, have you? Certainly not as much as me. I mean, there's a couple of ways that they can still win this game. Very much so. They could bat an hour into the fifth day with a lead of 120. I don't fancy South Africa batting 5 hours or 70 overs to save the game against Kuldeep on a fifth day pitch. And even if they concede a lead, as long as they do that quickly, I think that it could, I
Yeah.
think that they're not out. I'm not saying that they've got a good chance of winning, but we'll analyse what actually happened during the day. But I did you sense an air of deflation amongst the Indian team? Do you think they still believe?
Well, first of all, hello, Neil, and a very good hello to all our viewers as well. Once again, sorry, I'm slightly under the weather. If you can make out from the change in my voice a bit, uh, I think the Indian team is under the weather as well in Guwahati, given that 240 odd runs were added, 247 for six. You wanted to start at the end. Let's start at the end of yesterday's podcast when we said, 300, 350 would be an optimal score for South Africa. Both teams would be happy with it. Uh, Wicketless first session today for India. 489 on the board. Terrific 100 for Senuran Muthusamy. Uh, the only way, like you said, there are a couple of ways India can still win this test match. One of the ways is obviously, like you said, bat long, bat deep, well into the fifth day, bat once basically, get ahead by 150, 180, then try and force a result. But then again, you're depending on bowling out South Africa, and then there's not enough time left in the game. I think the other way to do it is bat quicker tomorrow, gauge the first session, first hour of play. It's very important that the opening stand is worth something. I'm not saying a century stand or something, but like today, it has to be a wicketless morning session, and then you crack on over the next two sessions tomorrow. I think the batting conditions will still be equally good, if maybe 10% differentiation from today. And the Indian innings has to go into the first session on day four. I am not sure they should bat up to 489, maybe concede a lead of 90, 100 odd, and then try to bowl out South Africa quickly, and then try to chase it down in the second innings. Let's say 180 odd to win the test match in two sessions or two and a half sessions on day five. A lot of ifs and buts in there. So I think these are the two ways. Like you said, either India can bat deep, very deep in the first innings, or they can bat a tad shorter in the first innings and concede the lead and then try to chase it down in the second innings. So these are the two ways that India can win this test match. But it's not going to be easy. It's going to depend very much on how the first innings progresses, how the first session tomorrow progresses, how the top five batters do for India tomorrow. But there's no mistaking here that India are behind the curve in this test match, and they are fighting not only to save this test match, they're fighting to save this series now. And I'm not going to say the writing is on the wall for India at the moment, because, like we just mentioned, they can still win this test match, they can still come back, but they are behind the curve in this test match after what happened today. And you talk about deflation. What we saw in the second session, primarily the first hour of the second session, very, very disappointed with the body language the Indians performed with.
Yeah, it wasn't good. Everybody said who knows Guwahati, who knows Indian conditions, knows red soil pitches. Everyone said that the batting would be best on the second
Yeah.
day, and it just it's a lovely moment afterwards when I think Murali Kartik asked Senuran Muthusamy, or was it Ravi? It could have been Ravi. Said, "Well, you've batted on this pitch long enough. How do you think? How much do you think it'll deteriorate?" And he replied, "Well, you guys should know that better than me. Let's see what happens." But the way Marco Jansen struck the ball
Mm,
would indicate to me that fast scoring is possible, and that's
mm,
what India are going to have to do. That they
mm,
are staring a series defeat in the face, and they're going to have to. They're going to have to score quickly. Jaiswal is going to have to get his uppercut out and take Marco Jansen on, but three spinners for South Africa. Muthusamy is just the most wonderful character, you know. He's only a couple of years younger than Keshav Maharaj, and otherwise he might have played 50 test matches. But, you know, two left arm spinners. They both come from Durban. They played against each other as schoolboys. He's 31 now, and he is just the epitome of modesty. You know, there's not an angry or aggressive bone in his body. He's immensely popular. He's not the average number seven, I have to say. He's got, you
yeah.
know, nine first-class hundreds before today, averages over 30 with the bat, but immensely popular. One of those figures, as you could see by the reaction of the South African players when he got to 100, who, you know, elicits just such joy and jubilation from his teammates when he does well. So it was the most accomplished performance, and I must say, watching the first session with half an hour to go, I just thought it doesn't matter about the runs. They'd only
Mm,
scored about 50, 69 in the end, but
yeah.
a wicketless session to begin the day. That was just a kick in the guts, wasn't it? And Kyle Verreynne, I did warn you yesterday. I thought that he was going to
Yeah.
be up for the fight.
I thought you had forgotten him. I was just about to start my answer with Kyle Verreynne. I think they were magnificent, Muthusamy and Verreynne, in that first session. Primarily the first hour, I think they scored what 30 odd runs in the first hour in 13 overs. They were not really looking to score. What they were trying to do is blunt the new ball. Remember, it was still new, just a 1 over old new ball, and Siraj and Bumrah starting off. You don't want to be creating any chances. The I think the idea was to last the first session and then try and push the score or push the innings as long as possible, keep India on the field for a majority of day two. We discussed this yesterday as well. We said this on the podcast that day two is going to be excellent for batting. So the primary focus for South Africa today was to keep India away from the batting crease for as long as possible. And in the end, India batted what, 6 overs? Throughout the day. So yeah, I think job done for South Africa, and it started in that first session in the first hour of play. Denied India with the new ball, and then I think Muthusamy took the he took he took the primary role as the spinners came on in the second hour of play in that morning session. Again, it was not about scoring runs, like we mentioned, 69 really in that first session. So overall, what they set out to achieve by prolonging that innings, I think South Africa did a terrific job. All credit to Verreynne. 122 deliveries he faced, and given that rash shot that he played in Kolkata, I think that was an innings of maturity. That was an innings that builds character. I think Shukri Conrad, he should be congratulated as well because he demoted him to number 8. I think that worked, as you mentioned. So that will help Kyle Verreynne to grow his cricket, grow his mentality. Really, Senuran Muthusamy, whatever you've said, I can't really add to that except just the vibes that he gives off. He's such likable. Even in that interview, he said, you guys should know better, as you mentioned. So the vibes that he just gives off, he's obviously a very likable character. I remember seeing him in 2019. It was, I think, Visakhapatnam. He had two, I think, smallish innings. In that first test match at Visakhapatnam. But yeah, they have done the job. And Marco Jansen coming in and scoring those big runs, those mighty sixes. I thought Jansen missed his 100 because he started blocking,
Yeah,
blocking
yeah.
the bowling. If he had continued to hit the way he was hitting, he would have got his 100, which was very disappointing. But yeah, terrific knock from Marco Jansen as well.
It was it was instructive, wasn't it, at the end? The level of his disappointment was so great that he didn't even raise his bat to acknowledge the applause. Everything that I said about Muthusamy and his popularity and the respect that he has within the
Mm,
change room applies also to Marco
yeah,
Jansen, who's
yeah,
has a very dry sense of humour. Now we all know that fast bowlers love their batting, maybe not on fast bouncy tracks when they're facing bowlers of their own ilk, but Jansen is particularly prone to loving his batting. And I mean,
yeah.
I've asked him several times, Okay, no, we all know you like your batting, but I mean, your primary job is as a bowler. There must be times
Yeah.
when just would prefer to. But and he said no, every single time, every time I score runs, I prefer it to when I bowl and I'm taking wickets. And I mean, do you remember? You may not remember, but he made his Test debut against India, and it was Mark Boucher was the coach, and he batted seven, which he'd
Yes,
never done at domestic level before.
I think I
And
do remember. And he actually broke into the South African lineup as a batting all-rounder, not the kind of role that he performs right now with the new ball. His primary job was as the batting all-rounder, which Muthusamy is actually performing, to his
Yeah,
credit. So I
but
think,
he'd
yeah,
never batted seven before. I mean, he was
yeah,
a number
yeah,
nine, really.
yeah,
And Boucher said, "Well, we think he can do a job for us."
yeah,
He actually said, "I don't think he realizes how good he is as a batsman." But he blows hot and cold. And do you know what? I think we mentioned this at Eden Gardens as well. He looks like a number nine or a number 10 when he's playing
yeah,
defensively, particularly against the spinners. And so that was what, look, it helps when you come to the crease. I mean, the 334.
yeah.
South Africa were 334 for seven when he comes to the crease. So that helps. But nonetheless, what a job of hitting he did. And
Yeah,
that's the difference between the shot that Carl Verreynne played, which was just a
yeah,
hoik, it was just a slog. That was just clean, pure, but smart hitting. A couple went wide of long on, but mostly he was hitting straight through the line, using his long arms, getting to the pitch of it.
yeah.
Just that was the most sixes hit by an overseas batsman in a Test match in India. Seven
And
sixes. Wasim Akram was previously highest, I think,
yeah,
with five.
yeah, and also he's tied with AB de Villiers and Quinton de Kock as the South African batter to hit more sixes in a Test innings. And you compare yourself to the likes of AB and Quinton, um, prime
He'll
batters.
be he'll love that. He'll be
He'll
very
love that.
flattered.
Yes, yeah. Considering what you just said about him loving his batting, but now I think we should also talk about India's bowling. Like I mentioned, a deflated performance in that second session, and I think there are a couple of blame games that can go around here. If I can say so, I think Rishabh Pant, in terms of captaincy, again, like I said yesterday, I'm not going to judge him too harshly on this. The reason for that is because he's a stand-in skipper at the moment. If he was a full-time skipper, I think that was absolutely a poor job of leading. But I think India missed someone of experience, someone of stature today in the field, somebody who could really drive, the team forward with their experience. Rishabh Pant, I think he was fighting on two or three fronts because the bowlers were taking a lot of time between overs,
Yeah,
between deliveries. I think he was warned twice or thrice by the umpires. A keeper can only do so much. As a skipper, and as a stand-in skipper, were the bowlers even listening to him? And if the bowlers are not listening to the stand-in skipper, does he have that kind of stature in the dressing room? So in that sense, Shubman Gill perhaps has that stature in the dressing room that they would not do the same thing with Shubman Gill because he is the full-time skipper. And then you miss somebody with great experience. And this is where Ravindra Jadeja, who's played so many test matches, he doesn't exert himself as a senior player, something like a Rohit Sharma would do, or a Virat Kohli would do, or even a Ravichandran Ashwin. I thought India desperately missed Ravichandran Ashwin today. And Washington Sundar, coming off as an off spinner, I think he's already confused in his mind, like we mentioned yesterday, that different roles that he's being asked to perform, sometimes as a number three batter. Now he's playing as a spinner, bowling 26 overs. He bowled what, 3 overs or 2 overs in Kolkata? Suddenly he's bowling 26 overs and has to pick up wickets. And he can't do that on an unhelpful track as compared to Kolkata. So he's doing different roles and it's confusing his mind. India missed a senior player who could exert himself on the team, on the proceedings today. And I think they missed a senior spinner. Ravindra Jadeja is not that senior spinner. He doesn't exert himself. He doesn't have that exerting personality or a dominating personality, something like Ravichandran Ashwin has. And even Jasprit Bumrah, for that matter, when Jasprit Bumrah is off color, when the surface is not working according to him, when the deliveries aren't doing or the ball is not doing what he wants them to do, even he goes a little flatter in terms of his body language. So that second session, I'm not going to say that India is going to lose this test match, but if they do lose this test match, they can look back at that second session on day 2 as the reason why they lost this game.
It's supposed to be 60 seconds between overs, isn't there? I mean,
Yeah,
the stop clock is supposed to be 60 seconds, and I think Kuldeep was being told off by the
yeah,
umpires as well. I think
yeah.
twice he was
And
really taking his time.
Pant also was telling off Kuldeep that what are you
Yeah,
doing? What are you doing? This is Test cricket. This is not a joke. So,
yeah.
I mean, that should be the skipper's least worry, least
Mm.
concern. And when the bowler is taking so much time, and we praised Kuldeep Yadav yesterday, so let's also criticize him today. When the bowler is taking so much time as a spinner, you're changing your fields around. That shows a muddled thinking that your plans are not working. And maybe you had a plan A and a plan B, but you do not have a plan C. And which is why I said India missed Ashwin today, because he's somebody who always tried something different. If his plan A and B are not working, he would think up a plan C. He would try different angles, different variations. So when India lost Ravichandran Ashwin, when he retired last series, I don't think the Indian cricket fans appreciated, or a majority of Indian cricket fans appreciated the kind of bowler they had lost in home conditions. And as we go along, as the Indian attack, which is also in transition, let's not mistake that. The Indian bowling attack is also in transition, just as the Indian batting lineup. As we go along, we will realize what a great bowler Ravichandran Ashwin was in these conditions and what his contribution was to Indian cricket. And, you only realize the value of something great when it is gone.
Yeah, wickets and runs are only one measure, aren't they? I mean,
Yeah,
Ashwin's influence, I think, and his reading of the game. Talking of muddled thinking,
yeah,
and I know I made this point with some emphasis yesterday, but Nitish Kumar Reddy is. Do you know a big part of me was thinking that Rishabh Pant was almost staging a protest about his inclusion in the team. He bowled 2 overs only after Bumrah and Siraj had bowled 30 each.
yeah.
I mean, he bowled 4 overs
Mhm.
early in the first session yesterday and then wasn't used again. He's down to bat number 8. And whereas Pant might say,
Yeah.
well, I have a full attack. I have 5 frontline bowlers. I don't need him. Well, what is he doing in the team? I asked the question yesterday, but frankly,
Hmm.
I tell you what, that everybody's bemoaning the lack of a third
Hmm.
test, but I reckon Bumrah and Siraj, who's bowled 32 and 30 overs respectively, be quite pleased there isn't another test match tomorrow. But basically, India are going into this with 10 players. Nitish Kumar Reddy is a
Hmm.
luxury. He shouldn't be there if he's not going to be used.
I understand your point of view, Neil. I absolutely do. And I think a lot of Indian cricket fans will also be questioning with the same line of thinking as you are. But we also have to consider that yesterday, when he bowled in the morning session, there was a bit of moisture in the pitch. It was a fresh wicket. There was a sprinkling of that grass, which was shining in the sunlight. Not so much today. Not so much today. It was an out and out flat wicket, belter of a wicket. I don't think that he could have got much purchase from it. And I think with the second new ball, uh, maybe they could have tried him early in that morning session when nothing was working out. But I don't think that he had a bigger role to play with the ball today. And which is why the bigger question is, do you not have a better batter to play? And I think he might be slated in the team sheet as number 8, but I think he will bat at number 4 as the right hander to replace Shubman Gill, which again begs the question, when somebody like a Karun Nair is piling up a mountain of runs in domestic cricket, why didn't you call him up? You could call him up for the England series because you needed that experience in England. You could have done the same because Shubman Gill was an injury doubt. And you can just haul up Karun Nair. It takes one domestic flight, maybe a 2-hour flight to reach Guwahati from wherever Karun Nair is playing, and he could have been part of this squad. And if you're not going to use Nitish Reddy for his bowling ability, and I think it is a limited bowling ability in these conditions, then you might as well play a right-hander who
Mm.
has a mountain of runs under his belt, who's been part of the Indian dressing room setup very, very recently. And I think that is a trick missed. And now the pressure will be on Nitish Reddy if he bats at 4 to get those big runs, because now we are staring at 480 odd runs still remaining in the first inning. So I think in our preview, we discussed this as well, that there'll be a lot of questions asked. When was the last time India lost important home series in back-to-back seasons? Let's even take the West Indies series out of the question, because West Indies are not a top-tier test side anymore. Losing to New Zealand last year at home, and now if India lose this test match 2-0 to South Africa, raises big question marks. Cheteshwar Pujara said last week that losing a test match at home is unacceptable for India, and I think I agree with him. But also, India is undergoing a transition, so losing an odd test match here and there is fine. But if you lose this test match, then it raises a question mark, because the transition is not going well. These youngsters should be good enough to win in India, at least, shouldn't they be? It raises a question mark on the coach, on the Indian support staff, and it raises a question mark on the selection panel as well. So still 3 days to go. I'm painting a bleak picture, but let's not mistake it. India are behind the curve. Their backs to the wall, and they really need to bat exceedingly well tomorrow to save this test match, let alone win it.
Okay, finally, there's a number of South Africans who are saying, again, without the perhaps knowledge of or experience of watching cricket in India, why didn't South Africa declare? Sorry for the chuckle. So they're saying, no, do we want to win the test? We should have bowled for at least an hour at them at the close of play. So perhaps you could finish by explaining to our maybe slightly younger South African viewers about the importance of first innings runs in India.
Importance of first innings runs, of course, when you are 480 or 450 on the board and there is still a session, because it's about leaving enough time for India to bat in this test match to force a result. You're 1-0 ahead in the series. At worst, you could draw this test match. At best, you could win this test match. So you don't want to give India enough time to bat themselves out of the hole that they find themselves in. As it is, India will have to bat aggressively, a little bit at a quicker pace over the next 4 sessions to force a result here. I think South Africa's strategy was on point. As I explained earlier today, South Africa wanted to delay India's innings as much as possible, because these were wonderful batting conditions. Maybe a 10%, 20% differentiation on day 3. It will still be good batting conditions for the first 2 sessions, at least tomorrow. Obviously, we'll see what happens. But today was absolutely beautiful for batters, and South Africa wanted to keep Indian batters away from the crease, and I think they have done a magnificent job of it.
And the other thing is that people who say South Africa should have declared probably have never fielded for 2 days. They have no idea of the physical toll.
You're 450 ahead in India, 3 days remaining. You don't declare.
Absolutely not. No, South Africa 489. It's a very, very special day. Senuran Muthusamy 109. Marco Jansen 93. That was another good reason that they didn't declare, with Jansen on a career best. He's never scored 100 at first class level either.
And somebody who loves his batting. I think if Temba would have declared, he would have gotten an earful there.
No, there would have been a national inquiry. Right. Well, I've got the openers down for big runs tomorrow. KL Rahul and Jaiswal. I think Rahul. What a glorious opportunity! He can bat for 2 days. He can drop anchor. He can play the kind of innings that he is so good at doing. Others can chip in around him. They're going to need a couple of big scores. I've got KL Rahul. I've inked him in for one. Who else? Maybe Nitish Kumar Reddy will make a mockery of my criticism of his selection and make 100 from number 8.
I think it's a very important day coming up for India's batters, India's top order. Yashasvi Jaiswal, I think he's one of India's big hopes as an all-format player, but there have been question marks against left-arm pace for him. I think Jansen was tired today in that initial spell. Let's not judge him too harshly. Tomorrow is going to be another day for him. Yashasvi Jaiswal, I think he's a fantastic batter. He needs to take the lead here. KL Rahul, as you mentioned, India will rely on him to hold one end up. I think it's a big day or big innings for Sai Sudarshan. A lot has been said about him. They are backing him. at number 3. Forget what happened in Kolkata. They are backing him. I think it's a big knock. If he fails tomorrow, then there'll be big questions. Nitish Reddy, of course, although maybe the jury won't be out because he's a stopgap at number 4. I still think he'll bat at number 4. I think if India have to win this test match, and I'm saying win, not save, Rishabh Pant is the key batter for me. The way he bats, at speed, at pace, he takes on the bowlers. He's the one who can deflate South Africa within 2 sessions. I think Rishabh Pant absolutely holds the key for me for India's first innings.
Right. Don't forget to look at or to listen to or to watch the main following on an analysis, a damning one as well, from Steve Harmison about England's 2-day defeat. But I'm Neil Manthorp. He's Chetan Narula. This is Following on India. Do join us again after the third day's play from Guwahati.